And that's everything. Thank you all very much for coming, and I hope you really enjoy the show.
Sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life. And speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracken?
Oh, yes, sir.
Oh, and by the way, Lane, I see by your records that on Thursday night, when Lord Shorman and Mr. Worthing dined here, 8 bottles of champagne are down having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that in a bachelor's household, the servants invariably drink the champagne? I merely ask for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I've often observed that in married households, the quality of the wine or the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens, Lane. Is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I've had very little experience of it myself, up to the present. I've only been married once. That was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't know that I'm much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir, that's not a very interesting subject. I rarely think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That will do, Lane, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders can't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem as a class to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Earnest Worthing.
Ernest, what brings you to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else should bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algy.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
Oh, in the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses others. It is excessively boring.
And who are these people you amuse?
Oh, neighbours, neighbours.
Good night, neighbours, in your part of Shropshire.
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, isn't it?
Shropshire? Eh? Why, yes, of course. Hello, why are these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such a reckless extravagance in one so young? Who is coming for tea?
Merely Aunt Augusta. And Gwendolyn.
Oh, perfectly delightful.
Yes, well that may be, but I don't think Aunt Augusta would approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. Why, it's almost as bad as the way she flirts with you.
Oh, my dear Algy, I'm in love with Gwendolyn. I've come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you said you'd come up for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic of you.
There is nothing romantic about proposing. Why, it's very romantic to be in love. But there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. And then the excitement is all over. The essence of romance is uncertainty. If I ever get married, I shall certainly try and forget the fact.
I've no doubt about that, dear Algy. The divorce courts were specifically constituted for ones whose memories were so curiously made up.
Well, there's no use speculating on this subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Wendy. Shropshire is your county, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Cucumber sandwiches. Don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They're for Aunt Augusta.
But you've been eating them all the time.
My aunt. Perhaps bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn adores bread and butter.
And very good bread and butter it is too.
Well, don't go eating it if you're going to eat it all. You behave as if you were married to her already. You are not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
In the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it's right.
Oh, that's nonsense.
When it isn't, it explains the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
Yes, Gwendolyn is my first cousin. And before I allow you to marry her, you shall have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean by Cecily? What
Rain?
do you mean?
Bring me the cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
You mean to say you've had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you would let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard all about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
There's no use offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
I think that's rather mean of you, Ernest, I really do. But it makes no matter now, for when I read the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it is mine. You've seen me with it 100 times and you have no right whatsoever to read what is inside of it. It is a very ungentlemanly thing to read what is inside a private cigarette case.
It is absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I'm quite aware of that, and I don't propose to discuss modern culture with you. I just want my cigarette case for that.
This isn't your cigarette case. It is a present from someone named Cecily, and you said you didn't know anyone by that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming lady. She is 2 lives at Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back, Algy.
But if she is your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells, why does she call herself Little Cecily? From Little Cecily, with her fondest love.
My dear Algy, what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. That should surely be a matter for an aunt to decide for herself. You think that all aunts should be like your aunt? That is absurd. I just want my cigarette case back.
I can understand why your aunt may be a small aunt. But why an aunt, no matter what her size, should call her own nephew her uncle, I can't quite make out. From Little Cecily, with her fondest love, to her dear Uncle Jack. Besides, your name isn't Jack, it's Ernest.
My name isn't Ernest. It's Jack.
Well, you have always told me it was Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You act as if you were Ernest. You look as if you were Ernest. In fact, you are the most earnest-looking person I ever saw. It's on your cards. Well, here's one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany. I shall keep this as proof of the fact if you ever try to deny it to myself, or to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Jack in the country and Ernest in town, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
But that does not explain the fact that your small Aunt Cecily, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, calls you her dear Uncle Jack. Come, old boy, you'd much better have the thing out at once.
You talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It is very vulgar to talk like a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It produces a false impression.
Well, that is what dentists always do. Besides, may I say that I have always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret Bunburyist. Well, now I'm quite sure of it.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by Bunburyist?
I will explain to you the inexplicable expression if you explain to me why you were Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now, produce your explanation, and pray, make it improbable.
My dear Algy, there is nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it is quite ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, a gentleman with a very kindly disposition, made me, in his will, guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. I must tell you that old Mr. Thomas Cardew adopted me when I was a very small boy. Hence I am now, as he has been deceased, the guardian of his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as uncle from motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of an admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Where is that place in the country, by the way?
Oh, that is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. However, I may tell you candidly the place is not in Shropshire.
I suspected as much. I have bungled all across Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. By the way, Shropshire is your county, isn't it?
No.
Now, what you really are is a Bunburyist. You are one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
I have no idea what you mean by that, but I should give you some more explanation about my motives, although I do not think you will understand them. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of a guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It is one's duty to do so. As this can be hardly said to conduce anything to either one's health or one's happiness, I have invented a younger brother by the name of Earnest, who lives in the Albany, where we are now, and he gets into the most dreadful scrapes. This is so that I can go up to the town as often as I like. That, my dear friend, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were, and modern literature a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't at all be a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not your forte, my dear fellow. Don't try it. Leave it to people who haven't been to university. They do it so well in the daily papers. No, what you really are, as I previously said, is a Bunburyist.
My Ernest, what in the world do you mean by Bunburyist?
Well, you have created a very useful younger brother by the name of Earnest, so that you may be able to go into the country as often as you like. I have created an invaluable permanent invalid by the name of Bunbury, so that I may be able to go up to town as often as I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. For instance, if it weren't for my friend Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, I wouldn't be able to dine with Willis's tonight, for I have really been engaged to my Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I have not asked you to dine anywhere with me tonight.
I know. It is very careless of you. You are very careless about handing out invitations. It's very foolish. Nothing annoys one more than not receiving an invitation.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I have no intention of doing anything of the kind. To begin with, I dined there on Monday night, and once a week is quite enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, when I am there, I am always treated as a member of the family, and sent down with either no women at all or 2. In the third place, I know perfectly well whom she will sit me next to tonight. She will sit me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. That thing is not pleasant. In fact, it is not even decent. The number of women who flirt with their own husbands in London is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It's merely washing one's own clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to explain the rules.
My dear friend, I am not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolyn accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. In fact, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily is a little too much interested in him. It is rather a bore. So I'm going to get rid of my brother, and I strongly suggest you do the same with your invalid friend with the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which seems to me to be extremely problematic, you will be glad to know Bunbury too.
If I marry Gwendolyn, and she's the only girl I ever saw that I would marry, I would certainly not want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. What you don't seem to realise is that in any marriage, 3 is company and 2 is none.
That is the theory that the French corrupt drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and the happy English home has proved in half the time.
For heaven's sake, don't be cynical. It is perfectly easy to be cynical.
It isn't easy to be anything these days. There's such a lot of beastly competition about. Ah, that must be Aunt Augusta. Nobody, except relatives or creditors, ever rings in that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I get her out of the way for 10 minutes, so that you may have an opportunity of proposing to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Well, come, old boy, you must be serious about it.